Hi, students. I am Lillian Sims. I am here with M3 Shelby McCubbin, who completed one of our full-time research fellowships last summer. You can do some of these in the summer after M2 year. As a reminder, the three that have applications open right now that close in the next couple of weeks towards the end of March are the NRPA, the Neuro program, the Family Medicine program, and the Diabetes and Research program. All of those are roughly 6 to 8 week big full-time research commitments that do provide funding, and a lot of students have been asking what those experiences are like. Shelby, I would love to hear which one you participated in,
I did the NRPA Neuro Fellowship.
and you did this after M2 year, which is apparently a thing that some M1s might not know about, right?
Yes, I did. I took step two a little bit earlier in the summer and had about 5 weeks in between, or step one, sorry, in between step one and start of M3. So I was able to do it then.
Awesome. And then lots of students are saying, if I'm going on vacation, can I still apply for these? Obviously, it's going to be program dependent and they need to ask, but in your case, you were able to work longer hours or something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Did you work that out with the program organizers or with your mentor specifically?
I worked it out with my mentor specifically. So I was fortunate in that I worked with someone I already knew. And so I was able to tell him ahead of time. But from what I know, most people understand how demanding medical school schedules can be and are willing to work with students.
Awesome. All right, tell us what kind of project that you did and what the day-to-day work was like.
Yeah, so I did like your traditional lab bench work, like going into a lab on campus, working with different chemicals, etc. I did stuff with fruit flies, and so I dissected fruit flies. I applied different bacteria to see how it affected the responses, and just kind of, your traditional idea of what you think about with labs, doing pipettes and different things like that. I was there normally. It depends on kind of what you're doing. Like my mentor is someone I've known for a long time, so he was very flexible with it. I would say I was there 5 or 6 hours a day for 5 weeks, which really wasn't that time demanding, but that was knowing that if I needed to work on things at home, like writing and stuff like that, I was able to do so.
You. And it sounds like some of the fellowships, it helps to know your mentor ahead of time, and others can pair you for NRPA, which is the neuro one. Can they pair
Yes,
people if they don't already know a mentor?
they can pair you. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Was the project something that you had already done in undergrad and you were continuing, or was this like a whole new topic for you?
This was a whole new topic. So what happened was when I started, I sat down with my mentor kind of like the first day, and he told me what was kind of happening in the lab already and asked if I was interested in hopping onto any of those things or whether I wanted to kind of talk with him about starting something new. So there were a couple of things that he mentioned that sounded interesting. So I kind of divided my time between a few different things that were already happening.
Did you? So would you say that you leaned into things he was already wanting to do, or did you end up saying you wanted to come up with kind of your own project there?
I leaned more into things that he was already doing.
I get this question a lot. What were kind of the pros and cons in your mind of coming up with your own thing that's sort of all yours or working with something that's already gotten started?
So for me personally, I am not interested in getting my PhD later on. I am more interested in like the social sciences research after medical school. So I didn't feel as much of a need to start a new bench work project myself because I didn't see it being something that would benefit my future skill set as much. So pros for me were that I was still getting some experience without having to put a bunch of time into developing something
Yeah,
new.
that's smart. I know this is labor intensive over the summer. Some students don't know what happens after the summer. So what did you do after, in your case, you were starting M3 year? What kind of involvement did you have sort of wrapping this project up or working towards outcomes after the summer ended?
So after the summer ended, I was still making graphs of the data, sending those in, getting feedback on them, revising, working on publication stuff. So helping draft the publication, helping make edits. We submitted for publication probably 5 or 6 months ago, and we're still getting feedback because it's kind of a weird project where like reviewers aren't loving the way that we did it, honestly. So still probably once a month, I'm getting editor comments and having to go through them and respond to them, and it's kept me busy.
That's tough. A lot of students who haven't gotten to the manuscript stage yet don't realize how long that review process can take. So
Mhm.
I'm sorry for you, but I'm glad that that you can share that. So this is
Yes.
something you would be doing as an M3 nights and weekends, kind of just what are your tips for like staying organized enough to make sure that you see that project to a conclusion once you're either a busy M2 or a busy M3?
I'm a big Google Calendar person. I believe that if it's not on my calendar, I will not be there. I will not know about it. It just won't happen. So anytime I have something like research or interest groups or extracurriculars, I schedule them as if it's a class on my calendar where I'll have like set time each week where I'm supposed to be sitting down focusing on that thing.
Yeah,
So then it kind of
gotcha.
helps because I already expect to be doing something during that time.
Now, this is highly student specific, so people who are
Mhm.
listening, this is going to be different with every mentor, but how did you negotiate? Did you ask if you could be first author on this project? I hear you saying you're kind of managing the reviews. Are you in a large group? How did you negotiate your role in the project?
So I'm really fortunate in that this project is just me, my mentor, and one other student. And kind of ahead of time, I talked to my mentor. I said, I'll be applying to residency before too long. I'm really interested in a first offer publication. What would that look like on my end? What would you expect me to do in order for that to be realistic? And so just kind of having that conversation right off the bat so that like nothing's awkward later on. And I felt like I knew exactly what I needed to do.
Yeah, I really appreciate hearing that. It sounds like if a student doesn't have the bandwidth to sort of maybe manage the manuscript writing in the year
Mhm.
after the fellowship, it would be okay for them to be honest with their PI and say, I'm not looking to sort of drive the ship here. I just want to be on the team and hopefully have an authorship. I'm guessing that might have been
Mhm.
an option as well, but you chose to kind of take on more work in order to have more responsibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if a student doesn't have as much research experience, I think it's totally understandable to go in and say like, I'm looking to develop this skill set, but I don't have the bandwidth like you're talking about to like fully take it on. And people will understand that. Most of the PIs at UK specifically are used to working with undergrad students as well. So they've kind of seen the whole spectrum of experience, which is
They're
nice.
used to students who don't know what they're doing yet and just want to learn.
Yes,
Now, had you
exactly.
worked on a manuscript before in undergrad, or was this your first time at the writing stage?
I had worked with this mentor for 3 years in
Okay,
undergrad.
got
So
you.
I already knew a lot of like kind of how he works.
So for the gunners out there, you don't necessarily want to say, I want first authorship if you've never worked on a paper before. I could see that being there being a lot that you had learned prior to be able to take that
Hmm.
on. Okay,
Yes.
so no pressure. All right. Before we go, I have plenty of students who did bench work in undergrad, but some didn't do
Mhm.
any research. What was, you said pipettes, like what was the actual day-to-day, maybe an hour of your time during the summer program? Thinking of a student who maybe has never been in a lab. Are you alone?
Mhm.
Are you on a team? What are you actually doing? Just for a little bit of a window into that.
Yeah, the lab I worked in had a lot of undergrad students there, so I was almost never actually alone in the lab. We'd be working on different projects because it was a really busy lab, but there would at least be someone else in the room with me. So depending on if you're paired with someone or if you're someone you already know, if you're paired with someone, your mentor will likely be there with you most of the time, kind of guiding you through things and telling you how to use different equipment and stuff.
Hmm.
But like I would get there, I would, my mentor taught me how to dissect fruit flies. So I would maybe spend the first hour and a half dissecting whatever flies I needed for that day. And then I would sit down at one of the stations and run our experiments with like the electrode equipment. And at that time, like normally another student would be in the lab with me. And so we would be kind of talking in between things, just kind of catching up. And then I would go home and do some of the data analysis on my own.
Got you.
Did that
Um,
answer the question?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
My final question would just be, we have lots of students at this stage looking towards the summer thinking, do I do nothing? Do I do a big time commitment like this? Do I look for a smaller time commitment? What was it that made it the right choice in your mind to go with something very labor intensive versus maybe like a short little case report or taking the whole summer off? What was your rationale there?
My big thing is, like I've said a few times, I worked with this person previously, and I feel like they had invested a lot into me throughout my training up until this point. And so I saw it kind of as a way to give back to that, while also benefiting myself. And there are a bunch of undergraduates in the lab. I'm really interested in medical education. So this was a time for me to kind of teach other students about kind of how different things work, how to approach that manuscript process, how to approach applications, stuff like that. So it kind of checked multiple boxes in what I was interested in.
I appreciate hearing this because sometimes students think, I don't want to be a bench scientist, so why would I do more bench work? But in your case, it sounds like
Mhm.
you don't want to be a bench scientist either, but it's sort of
Correct.
an educational, it fills your bucket in terms of an educational experience and mentorship role as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I'll add that there's a summer program on campus where elementary school kids come and do different activities to kind of see what a future career in science will look like. And so I was able to kind of participate in that as part of my role in the lab. So it kind of led me to do other things over the summer that I enjoyed as well.
That's beautiful. Okay,
Yes, it
last
was so
question.
fun.
Of course, this is different for everyone, but last question, what were your findings or what was kind of the outcome that came from your specific topic?
Yeah, so we looked at, depending on where you're at in med school, you may remember talking about LPS. It's a gram-negative toxin. We looked at how it affects different things within resting membrane potential. And so at the end of my project, I was able to submit it for publication, like we talked about. But a lot of these projects also have poster presentations you can submit to. So even if you're not interested in formally guiding a manuscript, you're able to present it at those types of opportunities as well.
I'm guessing, and again, extremely variable, at bare minimum, if someone's doing a very time-intensive summer project and then they're kind of juggling some data or some writing during M2 or in some cases M3 year,
Mhm.
submitting a poster to AOA or CCTS Day would, in the early spring, would fit great with that timeline, and then maybe working forwards to a regional, national, international conference or a paper, or in your case, it sounds like maybe moving a little faster if you're already submitting
Mhm.
papers. So lots of options, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
All
UK
right,
has a ton of different conferences. So
that's
even if you're
true.
not looking to go far, there I get emails all the time about things to submit to.
Benchwork in particular, I feel like there's lots more options
Yes.
to present, right? Good to know.
Hmm.
So, final verdict, would you do it again if you could go back in time?
I would do it again. Even though it was a bit hectic at times, I feel like it's a good experience.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Shelby. I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Bye.